I'm sure you've heard that there are only 4 ways to increase revenue in your business. It's one of those frameworks, it's one of those topics that comes up in blog posts and on YouTube videos and in articles and on podcasts like this, right? There are only 4 ways you can grow your revenue. Number 1, you're going to go and find more customers. Number 2, you're going to increase the transaction size of any given deal. You're going to charge more money. Maybe you're bundling services or you're getting really good at upselling. The 3rd way, you're going to increase the frequency of purchasing. So if customers buy from you quarterly, maybe they can buy from you monthly. Maybe they can buy from you bi-monthly, semi-monthly. You know what? Every time I speak to someone about whether it's semi-annually or what have you, everyone's always confused. But anyway, they can increase frequency, or at the end of the day, you can just simply charge more, right? Just move up your prices. And this is the advice that's often given because we want to sell more. That's why you're listening to this podcast. We want to sell more. We want more customers. We want bigger transaction sizes. We want people to buy more often. We want to be able to charge more money. But when you actually dig a little deeper into this, and if we just look at number 1, the idea of finding more customers, we go one layer down and there's even more options in front of us. Because when we want to find more customers, we have certain markets that we're in. So are we going to go out and find more customers in the same market with our current line of products and services? Are we going to go find more customers in the same market, but we're introducing new products or services? Are we going to go find new markets with our same old products or services? Or are we going to go into new markets with new products or services? And the reason I'm sharing all of this is because every time that we want to go into a new market, every time we want to add a new product or a new service or figure out how to increase the transaction size by bundling or upselling or increase the frequency to move people from quarterly purchasing to monthly purchasing or simply charge more at the end of the day, anytime we make changes, it adds complexity to our business. And as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as someone in charge of sales and marketing, we want more. We are charged with the responsibility of growing our division, growing our company, growing our revenue. We want more. And the first thing that we often think of is, how can I go out there and get more customers, go into new markets, go into new verticals? How can I introduce new products? How can I introduce new services? And at the end of the day, this makes our businesses incredibly complex because we often underestimate just how hard it is and how much work and complexity goes into building these entire systems and these entire processes and these entire machines at scale. And that's exactly what we're going to explore with today's guest, Josh Golden. Now, this is a real-world business case study because Josh is the Chief Marketing Officer at Quad, where he's leading this 50-year-old company's brand transformation from a traditional commercial printing business into a comprehensive marketing experience company. And Josh is going to explain a bit more about what that means. Now, if we go back in his career, before Josh was at Quad, he was the former president and publisher of Ad Age, where he's credited in rebranding the publication's digital transformation and actually creating some of the most prestigious and profitable offerings at the company. Before that, he was the VP of digital marketing at Xerox. He spent 15 years agency side, including working at Gray New York and Y&R New York. Now, here is something you don't see every day. If you go way, way back in Josh's career, his early history was in the film and television space, where he worked for the prosecution team on 2 of the most sensational trials in the last century. And this was the People versus O.J. Simpson and the People versus Menendez. And in each case, Josh was solely responsible for the concept development and production of hundreds of different videos and photo assets that were used in the courtroom. Now, if that's not going to help you learn marketing, positioning, branding, I don't know what kind of environment will. So with that, I want to welcome you to the How to Sell More podcast. It's a sales podcast for non-sales people, where each week we give a masterclass to help ambitious B2B leaders tackle the biggest challenge every business, every owner, every sales and marketing leader faces, and that is growing revenue. I am Mark Drager. Let's get into it. Josh, you are, of course, super, super well known within the publishing industry, within the advertising industry, because you were president and publisher of Ad Age. And for those who aren't familiar, that is kind of the giant advertising, marketing, agency, creative leader. I mean, everyone wants to be an ad age. Everyone wants to be a part of what you're doing. You are shining the light on some of the coolest campaigns with the coolest brands, with the greatest agencies. I almost feel a little insecure and lucky to even be talking to you today.
Stop it, Mark. Come on. Listen, the truth is it was a fabulous job. I loved what I did with Ad Age. When I came in, I remember it was advertising age at the time. And I said to Rance Crane, I folded a piece of paper. We were at a meeting. It's like my third meeting with them. And I slid it across the table to him. And he's like, is this money? And I'm like, Rance, please. And he opened it and it said Ad Age. And I said, if you can handle that idea, Rance, then you can handle me. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, listen, advertising age is about a 1987 beer commercial that everyone loved. And that was advertising age. Ad Age could be about data, or it could be about connections, or it could be about the evolution of what was at that time, sort of the beginnings of social media and the conversations that were happening with that, or expertise and collaboration. All those things weren't done. And when I joined Advertising Age and then we rebranded it, we really did evolve it. It became an excellent tool and a mechanism to get the story of a marketer's, success out there, the business of brands, if you will.
Well, you have to understand from my background, I wanted to go into engineering when I was young, but instead I went to film school. And
me too. I went to film school too.
There you go. So I went to film school. I worked in television. I worked at an internet marketing franchise at their head office. And I really found myself more in production. And production pulled to communications, pulled to Marcom, pulled to marketing, pulled to advertising eventually. But I come from a pretty pragmatic, production-focused world. And I am not, I've come to realize, an advertising person. But I'm really curious because that was your past. But today you're at Quad, and Quad is a 50-plus-year-old company that has its roots in publication as well, but in manufacturing and in print. And I think this is most relevant to a lot of our listeners because we may be sitting on organizations that are 10, 20, 30 years old that come from maybe a more industrial or blue-collar approach. And we now need to face a brand new market. We need to face customers who are more interested in data, or more interested in expanding our services, or they love us for one thing and now they're saying, please help me with all these other things.
Yeah.
And it's so tempting. It's so tempting as a business owner to say, I'm really good at this one area. Sure, I can help you with the second area. And the second becomes the third, and the third becomes a fourth. And suddenly, before you know it, your business is now really complex. You are scattered all over the place, and you're not quite sure what's working and what's not. So a few questions here. One, how have you been able to grow Quad? How are you doing this in a way where you're not introducing too much complexity in the business? And how are you sharing this story with your prospects and customers, knowing that now we do a lot of different things for a lot of different people?
It's such a great provocation because the reason I joined Quad was I kind of loved the vibe. I met with the CEO and the son of the founder, Joel Quadracci, and he's such a gem of a person. And he took me for dinner and we're chatting. And I was like, I kind of just like you as a person. So I think that's the thing that I tend to sort of strive for. I want to work somewhere where I really feel like I enjoy who I'm working with. And, there's a lot of different opportunities that were at my fingertips. And ironically, I wanted to take the one that I could have the biggest impact with. And Quad was at this place. It's always, I was this great phrase I believe in. It's like the best way to be a terrific king is to come after a really shitty king. If you can come in and make the world a better place, then you can create momentum and excitement. So my goal coming in was first and foremost to listen and not stretch so far what it had been historically that would break what inherently made Quad. And it was Quad Graphics beforehand, and it rebranded to Quad because they didn't just do the printing piece, they wanted to do the other thing. So it started off 52 years ago. It was 3 actually now, making magazines primarily, and then it moved into catalogs, and then it moved into direct mail. And then every time a client would ask us for the can you do's, we would add that on, and it becomes packaging, and then it becomes in-store, it becomes all these different divisions. And you're slowly starting to realize like what you've created or what they created over time. And when I joined, it was they had added on a media function called Rise and added on a wonderful creative function called Betty. And it allowed for the marketer to come to Quad and say, I have this singular problem. say it's direct mail, but can you do that for me? Sure. Do you need someone to design what the direct mail looks like to help make you make the offer? Do you need a testing solution? Do you need the data for whom you're going to mail this to? So Quad has created this wonderful, what I call like a modern holding company, where it just, you come in the door and we got a lot of possible entries, a lot of possible facets for you to investigate, but we sort of curate the best solution for you. Now, your second question, which I think is really apt, is it's so easy to add on, well, we could go be a blimp company too, because there's sometimes a need for blimps.
Yeah, can you make a blimp for us?
We probably could, to be honest with you, but that's not the point. The piece that stays core is always focusing on the marketer's challenge. What is the marketer primarily focused in solving? So if we focus in that area and we're endlessly looking to evolve and change and develop the best solutions that the marketer is looking for. And interestingly enough, it's not just the creative big idea things that brands are looking for. To be honest, Quad is excellent at its scale without sacrifice. Like I walked through the in-store division and they gave me this, I was walking around and they're printing all the things for it's a very large grocery store. And they're printing off blueberries, strawberries, bananas is the first one. And the second one's like, oh, we have to do store number 2. And it was apples, blueberries, and then orange juice. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're changing the order for every single store? And they're like, yes, it changes dependent upon, because they want to, the Quad believes in the efficiency when you arrive, when those in-store printed materials arrive at the store, when the person is putting it up, they put it up in order. So we understand that complexity, absorb it inside of Quad, and then deliver excellence at 2,300 stores. I was blown away by like, God, that you're making all these things exactly in the order for the store that we'll never even see. But that is the level of complexity. So to think about how a marketer can use that level of excellence, it's the exact right solution that we need to create, but we don't want to go too far. So the first part, it was the history, and the second part was really, you don't want to stretch it so far that it goes outside the bounds of what you really should be doing to help evolve the brand.
So you're already in a fairly complex business that is capable of handling a lot of assets, a lot of data, a lot of locations, pretty customized. But if we remove that complexity and we just think of the business units,
sure.
In my experience, the more you try to do for one single client, you can't have a zone of genius in all areas. And so I love the idea of being able to be the single source for all of your clients' needs.
Right.
But truthfully, you guys aren't going to be good at everything.
I would hope that is not what the takeaway is. So my history is in film, as we both discussed. And then I went to a lot of different brands, NBC Universal and AT&T and Xerox and Ad Age and now Quad. And every time the inclination is there to go beyond what you should. And the real expectation, the real hope is that you're delivering. As I remember, it was in the agency roles I was in. They were like, what are you great at? I'm like, I was a new business guy. So I'm like, everything. It's the worst answer ever. There was a story focused, like a content agency. I was like, we're really great at the storytelling piece of this. We can help you nail the strategy. When you are honest with yourself about what you can actually sell well, you got a great answer. It's the easiest thing ever to sell that, because everyone's going, we want that special thing. We just, for example, acquired a company that allowed us to basically stand up an entire retail media network option, which is basically being able to monetize the traffic of people coming through either your website or your store, and having we call it In-Store Connect, which basically is screens, because of course we've done the packaging for the store, we've done the in-store treatment for the store, we do the retail circular for the store, and now we can do these large digital displays. And back to your sort of complexity question, it changes every 6 to 8 seconds what the message is, depending upon who's walking by. If there's no one in there, then there isn't anything served. So we have all this thing that we can understand now because we've added on this level of technology that allows for a marketer to use the tools at their fingertips to get the best response possible. And that, I think, is what I will endlessly sort of pivot towards, like, how is it going to solve the problem of the marketer? An outside-in approach. Yeah, we have these great things, these printing presses that can print at 39 miles an hour and they're amazing, but that's not a value to the marketer. What is the problem that you can solve for your customer coming in the store so you can quickly understand what it is that they need and want? And that's what I believe that Quad is excellent at doing optimally.
And so if you had to provide advice for a listener who is considering growing through acquisition, growing by starting new departments or new services, or really, I love this term you mentioned, the can you do. And back in our agency journey, up until 2016, we were a very video-centric focused agency. If it was not video primarily first, we would not work with you. And then I fell into the trap of thinking I want to be everything for all of my clients. And we went far more full service digital. We went performance-based media placement. I wanted to do everything for my clients. And I completely underestimated just how much complexity I was adding to my business and the level of expertise I required. And so once again, it's super tempting because we had clients coming to us saying, well, Mark, we love you for this. Can you just help us with this? And I would say, oh, yeah. And I remember having one entrepreneur client who basically was begging us to build this fairly complex custom application for them. And I kept saying, like, this is not our zone of genius. No, it's going to be great for you, Mark. And it's a new service you can offer. And he's trying to pitch me on building this for him. And we did, and it didn't go that well. But
you tried. I think that
we tried.
It could have been. I just think it's really important to know what you do amazing, and to have that knowledge then be shared and celebrated. I mean, we're growing quite well now in the world of this mid-market retailer, meaning we have so many different solutions that they can use, that marketer can use, like where it's, it's messaging out, internal, packaging, in-store, the in-store connect, all those different things allow us to have a nice little ecosystem of, there's a lot of things we can do here. And it not too many of the things stretch beyond like, hey, can you invent a new sneaker for us? I'm like, actually, we shouldn't do the sneaker thing for you. But we can come up with a messaging that we can do around the sneaker, but not developing sneakers would be that one step or maybe two steps beyond. I think that for your listeners, I endlessly try to think about, I had this metaphor that I was using when I first started with Quad, and I was like, I'm going to get in a speedboat. I'm going to go as fast as I can out in this direction. I have a rope tied to the battleship, and I'm going to point where I believe the direction will be. And then I got to where I thought was an interesting spot, and I turned around and I was like, where's the boat? I lost the ship. They're gone they're over the horizon. So I had to switch boats to this. I switched to a tugboat. I was like, we're going to stay real close to the battleship, and we're just going to nudge the front end of it so that we can grow it together into a new area. I think that the brands and the businesses that are trying to grow, that you stretch too far, it's very, very easy to lose sight of who you are as a company at your core. And you can see it's happening a little bit with the large social media companies. They're experimenting with other things. It's not really your thing. You shouldn't really do this. And you can see, like, you don't wish happy birthday to people on LinkedIn. You just don't. I don't know why. It's just you don't do it because it's not part of that platform's sort of ethos. You congratulate people for their new job on LinkedIn, but not birthdays. So it's interesting to know who you are at your core, and Quad is exceptional. It's a Midwestern company. I'm in New York. Like, they have an office in New York for sure, but it's like they have a core Midwestern heritage. They know who they are. They know what they believe in. Just like Google knows that they're engineers at their core, right? Quad is a maker at our core. We make things. We make things that are printed, we make things that are digital, we make ideas, we make products, but they're all things that are physical and tangible. And that is what we are excellent at. So to go, maybe we should make a sneaker if I'm using the metaphor, but the point is that you don't want to go outside of your maker buckets. You're stretching your brand too far. This is what I believe is something that's really, you should ask, any can you do's should be questions like, does this break my promise that I won't go beyond who we are, who the promise that we're making to the industry of what we stand for?
And as you grow then your portfolio of skill sets, services, do you look at them and identify this is more of a hub and spoke model where this core service is at the center with these bolt-on services around, and we know that this primary central service will be what we're known for and what we will go to market for, and we will draw people in, and then only then introduce these secondary services? Do you approach it more, if you think of something more flat, where we're now going to go to market with 6 different core services, with 6 different messages, with 6 different opportunities? Or is this some kind of more of, let's call it a pyramid? There are foundational tools that you can then build an ascension model and send clients when they meet certain criteria up to that model.
I think the answer is a little more, it depends, but the best way that we've evolved it is, one, when I came in, we figured out what the story was of what Quad does well. And that was this sort of framing of solving the problems of the marketer, where they're endlessly trying to solve the problem for their customer. They're trying to deliver the best CX they can to their consumer. The question I eventually arrived at is, who's helping the marketer? So we developed this concept of a marketing experience company, of an MX company. Like, who's helping the marketer solve their problem? But many clients will come in one door and they'll be like, oh, I need you to do my media for us. Done. No problem with the media. Then the question is, once you get in the door and you've landed that client already comfortable that you can solve their problem, then you slowly add on, have you considered these other three things that you might want to help grow your business, because we're now in there. I never would propose to always come in the door with one hammer to sort of knock everything over. It's going to look bad. So I like to listen, of course, to the clients first, provide the best solution that we think is logical, and then expand from there. Land and expand, as they say.
And so when you look at all of these different solutions, so there are the 5 different solutions, but the 3 main kind of doors you want people to walk through. Do you run these on different P&Ls? Do you measure your cost of acquisition or your client retention? Do you operate each of these business lines knowing some of them are better profit centers, others might be more of loss leaders? How do you operate this?
Right. So the Quad operates very much as the actual original siloed businesses. That's how they know whether there's the DM business and there's the manufacturing, there's the magazine business, there's the agency businesses. All of them operate separately. So that's how we talk inside the company. That's how we talk to each other about our business divisions. But going outside the walls of Quad, I've been passionate about an outside-in approach. Don't make it hard for someone to buy what you have. So I try to make certain that we're endlessly focused on solving the marketer's problem. What's the top 5 marketer problems that are out there? It's data, it's media, it's complexity and channel offering, it's an offline and online challenge. All these things we have solutions for. You just have to tell the market, you have to have the salesperson listening well enough, like, what is the problem they're hearing, and then deliver like, well, it turns out we have a thing we made already over here that's exactly that. And that is why I believe simplicity, it comes back to my Apple analogy. Do you know how many products Apple has?
How many products? Like, are you talking about SKUs or families, collectives? How
the physical? I'll go with the products. They call them products. So I won't include different levels
versions
of gigabits
of stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, 25?
Yeah, 8. They have 8.
8.
They have 8. Quad has 300 or so. So the point is, you have to get really good at saying no. That is something we shouldn't do. We shouldn't do that. The cool part about what we're working on with Quad is sort of trimming the bonsai tree, having it be exactly what the marketer needs, so that we're not expanding beyond what we have, but really showing a solid footprint in that space. That's what's exciting to me, to show the marketer we can solve their the highest, most important problems, the highest order, the death of the cookie. You don't know who your customer is. We have household data, access to, we 280 million houses we touch on the weekly. We know what these people, they read Skier magazine and Woodworking Today. We know they're passionate about those two things. You shouldn't email them anything about snowboarding, because they're not going to be interested in that. Skiing is what they're interested in, but no one else has this kind of data, because no one else sends mail to the household as much as we do. So it gives us an interesting little leg up. And this, now the death of the cookie, we are the company that you go to be like, hey, do you know anybody who loves cats? Yeah, we have the whole list of the cat lovers. We know who they are. We know what zip code they live in and exactly how to communicate with them, because we know their address.
I just want to do just a real quick little deconstruct of what I'm hearing you say, because I think that this is really important. I don't want us in our kind of fast talking approach in this conversation to skip over a few really key lessons here, which is, one, when you came in, you did not move away from the heritage of the organization. You understood and took a real deep look at what was the glue, what was the core value drivers, what was the things that make you different, and who are you focusing on? The marketer. The marketer has problems. The marketer is your customer. How can we solve the marketer's problems? But what was interesting is when I asked about the 5 different areas that you go to market and whether they run on different P&Ls or how you look at cost of acquisition for your outbound sales or inbound sales or what have you, you mentioned, well, internally, we actually look at the business units in a very different way than externally. And this is one of the largest breakthroughs, I believe, more old school, let's call it, old school businesses need to embrace, which is the way that we look internally at our business based on stage of production, based on the type of work we do, based on the internal department who might specialize in certain things. That in no way, the operational way you look at your business means nothing to your prospects and your customers. They don't care about your internal processes. They don't care about the different departments you're touching. I mean, the greatest, I'm giving something away here, but my biggest lever I can throw when helping our entrepreneurial clients through their brand strategy process is actually just taking all of that internal stuff and saying, how do we make a simplified external version of this? How do we show up to the market the way that people think about us, not the way we internally look at our business? Did you have to work internally to win people over to this external way of thinking?
I will tell you, thank you for, I actually don't know that I've ever heard someone fully articulate that differentiation. I just knew that I couldn't break what was 53 years of status quo. It's so hard to change that. What I am able to influence was how are we going to market what we have to make people want to buy it. And the way that we were marketing it was, we are going to sell DM, we're going to sell packaging, we're going to sell in-store. And that was so hard to weave those things together, to have one story. So coming up with what I came in with sort of philosophy of an outside-in approach, like, how do we, it's like you develop this great printer and you're like, guys, buy this printer, it's amazing. You're like, well, I don't need a printer, but I don't care, buy it anyway. That's not going to work. If you're saying to a customer or a client, tell me the problems that you're having, and they communicate with you like, actually, I'm working with this thing and it's kind of annoying, and you're listening, then you can realize, well, it's funny, if I put in this piece and this piece, which are inherently disconnected internally, and put them together, suddenly the client has a solution. Now, this is not brain surgery at all, but it took some effort to link. There is an overlap between the external way we're talking, and when it comes inside, then it goes into P&Ls and it gets sort of hurried around, but the marketer never needs to see that. As a matter of fact, Joel, my boss, describes it this great little, this duck that's swimming very smoothly along the water. But if you look under the water, the legs are paddling really, really fast, right? Quad is excellent at paddling fast, but for the marketer, all they see is this smooth moving, graceful, bird. And I will tell you that it is a job to connect those two pieces, but it really does help sell the benefit of a quad, because it's like, hey, they just solved all my problems. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And the truth is, when it comes inside, there's a massive machine and all these white blood cells are like, we have to figure this out, and then they ripped it to pieces. And then suddenly it gets delivered, or whatever, it's manufactured or made or created or digitally distributed. And it becomes this successful moment for the marketer where they're like, wow, quad solved my problem. Meanwhile, we're all sweating and took a minute to breathe heavy through it. But that's really the cool part about quad, is we do the hard thing a million times at a level of excellence that never messes up. It's kind of amazing. So I'm proud of what we've done, but I'm also proud that we haven't broken what was already core to the business, but Quad gave us, the brand gave us this ability to tell the story differently, so that the marketer can hear it and start to consider us for the different things that they might not have originally considered. Someone who inherited was a printer now has this understanding at scale of doing things that are frankly very difficult, but that could be done by a company like ours very easily.
Oh my goodness. This has been such a great conversation. I'm of course speaking with Josh Golden, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Quad. I do have one more question for you before we wrap up. And I want to know, tell me your number one tip or strategy to help us sell more.
So I have a pretty passionate perspective on this. I believe that to sell more, I believe in relationships. Now, of course, I don't know if it's a pat answer, but I believe in this because I believe that the relationships that I've had with people historically, and even through my time at Ad Age and other roles and NBC, they were so important. But the relationships that I have as I switch industries, and I do it purposefully, I bring the intelligence along that I've had from other roles. But I text with people endlessly. I have probably 300 or 400 text chains that I keep alive. I know it's a lot, but it's my tool to sell more to people because I have an ongoing relationship with them. If I'm calling them out of the blue, like, hey, you want to take a meeting? They're like, Why would I do this? But if we've had conversations before and we've chatted about family, we've chatted about whatever, or Happy Mother's Day, whatever it is, it's the keep alive that keeps a relationship. That's a light relationship at sometimes, or it's deep. It can go either way. Sometimes they call me for a favor. Sometimes I text them for a favor. But that ability to have a relationship that allows that person to let you in their front door and have a conversation with them, and then you can potentially sell more. It's not always a gimme, but I will tell you that it is a great first step.
So that was the conversation I had with the one and only Josh Golden. Now to wrap up, I'm going to share my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk. Number 1, anytime that you're looking to expand your number of services, you have to do it in a strategic way, and that has to be true to your core competencies. Expanding your services should align with who you are, with your culture, with your core competencies and your core skill sets. And more than that, it's not what people buy, but it's why they choose to work with you. And as you move to new products and new services, if you're able to retain or hold on to that core competency or that core why, that core purpose, the problems that you solve, but you're just a few degrees removed, or you're bolting on a service, or you're adding something in a way that is not a completely different business model, with a completely different customer type, with a completely different purchasing decision, you are going to help keep things a little more simple and a little bit more scalable, and you are going to go from win to win rather than trying to bolt on completely different businesses, business models, teams, approaches, standard operating procedures, operations, buying cycles, what have you. Keep things simple, guys. Number 2, did you notice how many times Josh mentioned that their sole job is to solve the problem of the marketer? I love this focus and this approach, because what is so clear after just a few minutes of spending time with Josh, and I would hope that you would have this type of clarity in your own business. Quad is all about solving the everyday problems of the marketer. And even though they've developed all these different services and all these different offers, it all comes down to the same type of target. Who is your fill-in-the-blank marketer? What are the problems that you are aiming to solve for that customer? And the real question here is, can you articulate this in a really simple and easy way? Is your team able to articulate this in a really simple way? And does everyone understand who this, like again, fill in the blank, they solve the problems of marketers, you solve the problems of other type of customer types, but can you and every single person in your company and organization articulate this in a clear and simple way, just as Josh shared with us in today's episode? And key takeaway number 3, when you expand your services to solve those problems for your client type, it allows you to form a much deeper and longer term partnership. Now, strategically, this could be a moat, a defensive moat that you put around your company. Obviously, if you're able to embed your services and your products and your team into the client's workflow, it makes it much, much more challenging for them to leave later. This provides you a little opportunity to maybe move up pricing over time. It affords you the opportunity to maybe embed your services even deeper within the organization. And so this gives you a really strong strategic advantage, because the more value that you are able to drive for a client over the longer term, even though you feel like maybe it gives the customer or the client buying power, maybe it feels like they can dictate the rules to you, you understand just how challenging and complex it is to have all of these products and all of these services delivered to the client in a way that actually drives value and drives results. Your company has an institutional knowledge that will take other companies months or years or maybe even a decade plus to be able to replicate. And so the longer and deeper that you can go with your clients by offering these different services, when leveraged properly, gives you a really strong defensive position to hold on to that client, to remind them of the value you're giving them, and to be able to keep competitors from swooping in and trying to take your business. So there you have it. Those were my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk, but I'm curious, what were yours? Did anything challenge your perspective? Let's dive deeper over on LinkedIn, where I share more insights and I spark discussion. Again, my name is Mark Drager, and you can find my contact details in the episode show notes. Now, while you're over on LinkedIn, be sure to follow Josh Golden for more comprehensive and really effective content. And you can also learn more about how Quad helps marketers solve their everyday problems over at quad.com. Now, one last thing. If you've made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. And here's why. You're obviously an ambitious B2B leader, you're an entrepreneur, you're a head of marketing, you're a head of sales, and you are looking for more actionable strategies and tips to grow your business. That has to be a good enough reason because you are still listening to my voice. And so why not go ahead and give us a subscribe? Why not head over to LinkedIn, connect with me, and drop me a note and let me know your thoughts on this episode. Either way, thank you for listening. I am Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next episode.